Hear me without the microphone, but we're on television. We're going to be on the city website's going to video this, so that if people have questions about school traffic issues, we can refer them to the website. You can watch the video, and you can get. Hopefully, we'll get a lot of information on video here that we can share with the community. So, first off. This is our topic for discussion tonight is school traffic issues, and we have done, this is our third, we've tried to do these quarterly community forums. Our first one was about crime stats in Wheat Ridge, and that is available on the city website. You can go back and watch that. You can see what the burglary rate is in Wheat Ridge and a lot of information about where hotspots in crime occurs in Wheat Ridge. We did a second topic in November, I believe it was November, we did on homelessness. Was very well attended. I think we had 50 plus people that attended that one. I don't know, were you there, John? Were you thinking? No, I don't have an answer for that. Our school resource officers are here. Barry Malloy, Krista CUNY is here, and they invited all of the schools to be there. We had hoped that we'd get a good turnout. We seem to get a lot of questions about school traffic issues, and that's how we gauge what we're going to have our topics about. So if you have ideas for the next quarterly forum, we'll certainly think about what we'll do for the next time. Let me introduce our panel of experts here. We have Police Chief Dan Brennan. We have our Public Works Director, Scott Brink. We have John Pickett, who is a sergeant in charge of our crash and traffic team. And we have a first-round draft pick. We had a person that was sick and couldn't make it, so Larry Welshon from Alpine Valley, the principal there, Alpine Valley Elementary, has generously agreed to sit on our panel. So if you have questions on any of these particular areas, you can ask them. We don't need to be terribly formal with this since we just have a few people here, and we can address your issues specifically if you have any questions. We did put together a little bit of a program on some information that might be helpful, talking about traffic accidents. So here's kind of the numbers that we see, and this is all over Wheat Ridge. In 2015, you see we had 1,829 traffic accidents in Wheat Ridge. We had 985 calls for service involving traffic. So that could be somebody talking about illegal parking. It could be a car broke down. It could be a variety of different things associated with traffic, but not necessarily an accident. So that's how those numbers pan out. You see we're pretty steady on accidents, pretty steady on calls for service over the past 3 years. And then this is what we have on traffic incidents at schools. We have had, and this includes not all of 2016, this is the school year of 2016 to 2017, and then includes the portion of 2018. So we've got these extra 3 months thrown in here. And we only have 22 traffic complaints and 7 accidents that have occurred in the proximity of schools. So just to give you a perspective of, what for all of the accidents, if we're looking at 1,755 accidents that occurred in Wheat Ridge, only 7 of those accidents would have occurred at a school. So I don't mean to say that there's acceptable numbers of accidents, but we want to say that they're very low, and at schools they appear to be very safe, just looking at the statistics there. Now these are traffic incidents that we're talking about. This is this number about the 22 traffic complaints. When we look at those, 50% of those occurred at these particular schools. So Mountain Phoenix, reports of cars blocking traffic, Pennington, cars blocking traffic, and reckless driver and speeding. And at Wilmore Davis, we had complaints of speeding and cars blocking traffic. So you see a pattern there, at least, even though they're low numbers, you see a pattern there of the types of complaints. And let me just have the panel, if you have anything you want to jump in, just jump right in. If something is screaming for your answer. I wanted to talk about what time are rush hour times. And so if you were living near a school and you have problems with traffic, I would say, maybe you probably already know this, but if you know what times parents normally drop off kids or pick them up, if you avoid those times, if you can, around those the school schedule, you probably have less delays if you can possibly manage that. So usually it takes about 20 minutes for the drop-off, and it gets gradual. At the first part of that 20 minutes, it's a little slow, picks up to be pretty steady, and then tapers off quickly as when the final bell rings. Pickup time's usually quicker because those kids want to get out of school, so they're gone. They get out pretty quick. I want to talk about our Hug and Go program. Actually, I want to have Sergeant Pickett talk about our Hug and Go program, explain what it is, how we came up with it, which is kind of the outline that I've got up there, and then I got another slide that talks about do's and don'ts.
So the Hug and Go program that we have here is based on what the schools already had in place. We call it Hug and Go 2.0 because we tried to improve upon what they were doing. So what we did is we sent traffic officers in to look at what was going on at each of the schools, what the complaints were, what was working, what wasn't working, and try to come up with an idea on how, with what we have, how we could streamline those processes so that these drop-off and pickup times could be less intrusive to the people in the area. And we worked with the city, we worked with traffic engineers, and we worked with the schools to see what we could do about that. So our officers went in there and came up with plans and implemented them at each of the schools. And the number of complaints have seriously dropped in those areas. Issues being that the division chief will talk about later is a lot of these schools are in areas where we can't do a lot with the infrastructure. So we're having to deal with what's already there and manipulate that to get things to work. But so far we've had some pretty good successes with this.
So, a lot of the complaints that have occurred regarding congestion and illegal parking at the pickup and drop-off points, the width of the street, which causes, parking problems and congestion, and that schools have grown and become more popular, and so they have more and more people attending, which is kind of a good thing, but then can also be kind of a bad thing, kind of an annoying thing. Scott, could I put you on the spot and talk about logistics and planning and those kinds of engineering issues?
Yeah, I think as Jim covered in the slide there, working with schools and traffic issues can kind of entail a lot of different things, different stakeholders. It's, there's the residents that live near the school. There's the parents that come and drop their kids off to school, the school administrators, people that just drive the street every day, have nothing to do with the school and drive through. So as he pointed out on the slide there, the biggest traffic issue we seem to run into is normally during the school pickup and drop-off times. The afternoons seem to, for some reason, be a little bit more problem than the mornings than we've seen. But I guess from the public works engineering standpoint, when these issues come up, we do try to work with all the different interested parties, stakeholders on, first of all, what really is the problem, really defining the problem and what needs to be done about it. And I give a lot of credit to school administrators, school principals like Larry, because a lot of times they're stuck in a hard place. You've got these parents bringing their children in, and kids, as pointed out, don't walk or bike to school like they used to. So you have all this traffic coming into schools that never used to, and the parents or the school administrators, principals can get a lot of heat from the parents about trying to make things easier, and at the same time you do have buses bringing students in as well, so you're trying to figure out this good bus circulating route, especially in larger schools for bringing students in, and you got the drop-offs coming in at the same time. So how do you coordinate the traffic and make it work during this time so it's not chaos, that there's some kind of system in place, knowing you're still going to have some congestion, and that's where we work with the school and with the police to try and figure out the best way to do that. And a lot of it is from the administration itself, getting the word out to the students and the parents on how it goes. So that is, I think, a big part of it. There is just figuring out what's the most efficient way to move traffic in and out. There's other issues too from a public safety standpoint. We look at if there's a lot of queues, backups that are causing people to do illegal moves or illegal parking, then we kind of rely on the police a lot to provide enforcement. Or what we found at some schools too, in helping with the traffic flow, is schools that utilize parents, volunteers, just to get the traffic moving through their parking lot, circulating more efficiently. That's a huge help when the school has those resources available, volunteers. So again, it's this balancing act a lot of times between the school, the residents that live there, parents, students, the police trying to enforce our laws. It's things aren't always in alignment, but I think between all the stakeholders, we try to get things to work.
Thanks, Scott. Kind of brings up one of the issues when we're talking about enforcement and police officer presence at schools. So we have 2 school resource officers. They're here in the back. We've already introduced them. But we only have 2 for 15 schools in Wheat Ridge. So they have to move around. They have to hit some places, and some need more attention than others. As you could probably imagine, the middle school and the high school usually have more things going on than elementary schools. We have a lot more people going to those locations, so we have more traffic in general at those places. And of course, you always know there's never a police officer around when you need one. So we try to get around, we try to look at different things, and we try to incorporate, as Scott said, we try to incorporate volunteers at the schools, the teachers and parents. They'll put on the traffic vests, and they're out usually every morning. Well, not usually. They're always out, right? Usually out? Okay. All right. And so they help provide order to the system that each school has developed. Larry?
Yes, sir.
Now I'll put you on the spot. If you can talk about, first of all, why don't you talk about yourself and tell us, your experience in schools. I know
Sure,
you have
thank you.
extensive experience.
I do. And
Maybe you can talk about your perspective from a
Oh, yeah.
school about traffic issues.
I'm happy to do so. I'm glad that I got to be invited. So I've been here a long time, right? I've taught at Alpine Valley School at 4501 for close to 20 years, and I grew up. I'm a graduate of Prospect Valley and Everett and Wheat Ridge, so this has been home to me for a long time. I think for us, being a small independent school, coming in and taking over an existing property that was not a school presented certain challenges, and it's no different than Mountain Phoenix or the Waldorf School. You're looking at buildings that were not designed for that. And for the other schools, they do hug and go zones. We do something similar. We do on campus and pick up and drop off. And we have to be really clear with the parents because they would much rather just drop their kids off on Parfait. But we have to remind them that that's not safe. And Parfait is a major through street, and we remind them frequently. So to some degree, I think communication is one of the most important things that I would encourage all community members to engage in. Talk to city staff. I found them to be very responsive. The city police, very responsive. And the other administrators. I mean, all of us as school administrators, we want to coexist, right? We're part of your neighborhood. We want to be there and be good neighbors. I know it's interesting. They were the statistics you were talking about and the process going through dealing with the growing pains of Mountain Phoenix. We had some of those problems on Parfait because parents would drop their kids off at that school and then go down 47th to Parfait and scream at Parfait. And so I talked to our school resource officer, Barry, and Barry said, let me handle it. And lo and behold, he handled it. And I suspect that Barry had a conversation with the administrators and said, hey, let your parents know that there's children in the neighborhood, all over the neighborhood. So that's been very good for us, and I appreciate Barry's efforts on our behalf. I think the other thing that I think helped with the Mountain Phoenix one was explicit signage. I thought that was very helpful when the signs went up. And I have another maybe funny story. It'll be anonymous, and it's not me. But the other day, a kid came into the school quite excited. He says, Larry, my dad got pulled over for speeding on the way to school this morning. And I didn't say anything, but I just smiled. But I think enforcement's a big part of it, and being out there. And I know that, cops aren't always there when you need them, but it's a big, it's a big issue. And I think all of us as community members have to work together and remember that we're all in it together. Did I address your concerns or skip any?
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
Those signs, that's another joint effort between Public Works and the police department, deciding where we need to put those and what they need to say and how effective they're going to be and evaluate them, assess them after they've been up for a while and make them work out good. So, Chief, I've left you out, but you usually have the most experienced perspective of what's going on in the city and safety, and tell us about your concerns and school safety and traffic.
So traffic in Wheat Ridge is certainly reflective of the broader metro area and the Front Range. It's not a situation that's unique to our community. Traffic congestion, traffic flow, traffic infrastructure, the public safety issues around traffic are an issue really of statewide importance, right? But if we look just at Wheat Ridge, a couple of dynamics have taken place over the course of time. You don't have as many kids walking to school anymore because our society's become very mobile. And so you have parents that transport their kids to school now. You have a situation where kids can enroll in schools. They don't necessarily have to follow a neighborhood choice. They can go to the schools of their choice. So you get situations where parents transport kids from a ways away. It might maybe from Arvada or Lakewood or Golden, to schools in Wheat Ridge, and buses don't bring them in. The parents do. And then just the overall flow of vehicles in the city. The city's a lot more congested than it was 30 years ago. You just have to drive down Wadsworth and Kipling to figure that out, right? You've got a lot more traffic that flows through the city. So the interesting part of that from my perspective is it's more than just the traffic safety issue. It's the broader issues of a community that has been in place for a while, You have schools that, some that were built, and there weren't a lot of homes around those schools, and now there's a lot of infrastructure around those. You have schools that have been located in areas with sort of a plan and a concept that was in place, but have really grown and become popular, so their population has increased. And those are all things that a police department or a public works department doesn't necessarily control. What we have to respond to are the issues that that come out of that. So a lot of people ask me, what is your police department doing about this? So we're doing a couple of things. You've heard about the Hug and Go project that Sergeant Pickett's team put together, and that was really in response to citizen complaints at a number of our elementary schools in regards to the traffic congestion and the traffic flow, and quite frankly, sometimes parents who weren't aware of the school's plan or really aren't self-aware of what's going on around them. So, they could be stopped at a stop sign waiting for the kid to get out and blocking other traffic. They could be double parked. They could be parked in a parking area that is designated for residents and not for non-residents. So John's team put together a really innovative approach along with our school resource officers of trying to educate parents. And that is an ongoing process because every school year you get a new set of parents that come in there that are not familiar with what the parking issues and the traffic issues are. So it's a continuous sort of communication between the police department, public works, the school administration, and then the parents, and quite frankly the students as well, because we want students who are mobile, who are out there walking to school every day and crossing our roads to be safe as well. The other thing that we do as a police department is we meet with our school administrators on an annual basis. Our crime prevention team, which is where our SROs are focused, we pull together all of our private and public schools on an annual basis. And a topic of discussion every year are the traffic concerns that have been expressed at the various schools. We oftentimes will work with individual principals on those issues, and when those issues come up during the course of the year, either our traffic officers or our SROs, sometimes both, are working with the school administrator to get educational information out to parents on a weekly basis, and letters that are sent out to parents on news about the school and what's going on. And then the other thing that our citizens should be aware of is Director Brink's team, traffic engineers, and the PD's team. So myself, Division Chief Lawrence, Sergeant Pickett, and others, we meet on a monthly basis to talk about all the traffic issues that are going on in our community. So those are all driven by citizen complaints. So if an elected official gets a complaint from a citizen, that's a source of discussion. We try to look at what those issues are and try to figure out what's the best approach to this. Is it a sort of a traffic engineering approach to fix the problem? Is it an enforcement approach? Or is it an education approach? And really, quite frankly, in my experience, it's a blend of all three to be really, really successful. So, it's important for our community to know, the processes that we use, because your concerns, about traffic congestion and traffic safety around schools are listened to, because they're almost always acted upon immediately in terms of notifications to our traffic team, our patrol officers, our SROs. But then, and so that's sort of a tactical sort of, well, let's get this taken care of this day or this week. But then also from a strategic perspective, your police chief, your public works director, and other key stakeholders are all involved in a discussion of how do we fix it, how do we address it, how do we deal with this particular problem. From my perspective, the best approach is really sort of a collaborative approach. Enforcement will help with the problem a little bit. When you get a ticket, it gets your attention, right? And you think about it. But the bigger and better approach, from my perspective, is that is sort of that collaborative approach of working with the schools, working with the administrators, trying to work with parents to solve the problem. Thank you.
Great. And I put up the slide about Hug and Go. These are the do's and don'ts, and I know a lot of it's too small to read, but, you know, slow down, be aware, pull forward, exit on the right, use your signals, be courteous. You know, all of those things promote a good program and safety for the kids. And the don'ts, you know, stay off the cell phone, don't drive aggressively, don't idle, you know, don't get out of your vehicle. We need to keep this line moving, and don't stop directly in front of the school. Park in the Hug and Go lane, and some schools have the Hug and Go lane, and some don't. But that's kind of the basics of the program that we want to present to the schools. So while we were talking, did anybody on the panel think of anything else they'd like to add? Words of wisdom here. No wisdom. No.
Sometimes we talk about enforcement, and although enforcement works in some areas, other places enforcement can actually hinder the process, especially around the schools where the traffic is moving slowly because people are trying to drop off their kids or pick up their kids. Having a police car out there can oftentimes cause more anxiety and confusion for the parents than if we get the parents involved and the administrators involved, which luckily in town we've been able to do. When it comes to things like speed and whatnot in areas of school zones and whatnot, then we find enforcement is helpful there, but where the speeds are slower, it oftentimes is more of a hindrance, and it's better, again, to do the collaborative, as the chief has mentioned.
Thanks. Anybody else?
Yeah, I was just going to add real quickly, you know, what we work through in Wheat Ridge here with these traffic challenges and everything, it isn't unique to Wheat Ridge. I think all cities I'm aware of and where I've had experience struggle with this exact same thing. And it's a lot of the same issues, but each situation, each school is unique in its own way too, as far as, you know, the traffic that comes in and out and the surrounding infrastructure and what you have to work with. But I'll just echo what's already been said here tonight. I think the best approach is always a collaborative approach, whether it's engineering, enforcement, or education. It's usually a combination of all three in some respect, you know, maybe depending on the situation, weighted harder on one than the other. But again, it's all about dialogue with the interested parties, you know, the parents especially, and school administration, police, public works, the neighboring residents and all. So, you know, again, the more we collaborate and talk and identify the problem and what to do about it, the better.
I think this is your opportunity to ask questions. All you have the attention of these experts here. Take advantage of it. You have questions about school traffic issues? Yes. Now, you have to use the microphone because you're going to be on TV.
I have a question for the sergeant and for the chief both. You both mentioned plans that you do with the various schools, traffic plans. Can I see those? Do you have them? Did they come tonight, or are they?
The officers that actually have developed
Exactly,
that
developed.
developed those, I can get those from them. I did not bring those with me
Okay,
tonight.
that would be very helpful for me. My other question is for this gentleman, the principal.
Okay.
What did those signs say that you think are so effective? I'm just curious, because
Down
we
in
might
Mountain
want
Phoenix?
some. Pardon me?
At Mountain Phoenix, at the corners, there's, you know, very clear signs that say no, I can't remember the exact wording, but basically no parking, you know, from here to here. Because for, you know, I used
And you find those effective?
yeah. Well,
have
and
them
my
in
you know,
the
my data point is one corner. It's 47th and Miller, right? That's where I drive by sometimes. And when that school first opened, it was a zoo. And with those signs, it has helped out quite a lot. And I think now they also have a significant hug and go zone right off of 47th, which is quite good.
Okay, and then my next question, since there are so few people here, and that's what I want to know about. You all talk, I think you've all mentioned collaboration. But the only person here from a school is from a school that's independent of all the other schools, of our local district. Is there anybody here from Jefferson County?
So we invited one principal from a Jefferson County elementary school, and well, yeah, I mean, we invited all of the schools to attend, right? So schools are very busy. They have their meetings as well. We had okay, thank you. We had one principal, that we invited to be on the panel, and he got ill. So, we can't do anything about that. But what I can tell you is that, we are very engaged with all of the principals, and I can tell you that they are very engaged with us in regards to, to doing those kinds of things. We might have had just an event on a night when they were all busy.
Just a bad night. Well, so when you have these collaborative meetings, are they open to the public? Would I be able to come and sit in?
So when we do our meeting with principals, it's really a meeting between the PD and the school principals to talk about the issues over the course of the previous year. So some of those involve social issues, some of those involve criminal issues, child abuse, child neglect reporting kinds of issues, and then the traffic issues. So it's not really the stakeholder meeting is between the PD and the schools. My suggestion for you is if you're having a particular challenge with a school in your neighborhood, is to try to meet with the principal and the administration, or give me a call, shoot me an email, and I'll have our SROs or traffic team try to work around that particular issue. I mean, that's generally what we've done in the past.
So that is something that an SRO might get involved with?
Well, either the SRO or our traffic team, sure.
That would be like Sergeant Pickett?
Sergeant Pickett, yes.
And I can tell you with our meetings, because we attend the meeting that the chief was speaking about, but we also have other meetings with the school administrators. My officers will go out and show a plan to the school administrators, show them what they're thinking of, find out what they're already doing, what their concerns are, et cetera. And that's more of a one-on-one meeting. And then there are times when Mr. Brink and I will go out, speak to an administrator, find what their perspectives are, and offer what help and advice we can to alleviate these issues. So oftentimes these are smaller meetings. So just one-on-one, two-on-one.
That's a great point, John. And so part of the challenge too, that we face is we have to work with the existing footprint that is there. Police Department of Public Works, we can't change the flow of the street. We can't change the footprint of the school. We can't change that residential dynamic. But we have this other dynamic with traffic that flows in and out. So what we try to do is come up with the best plan that works, but it may not be the best plan for you, as a resident in a particular area. It's like Mountain Phoenix. Mountain Phoenix is located on the corner of a very busy frontage road and a street. We've got some other schools that are located off of very busy thoroughfares, right off of 44th Avenue. So it's difficult to work with that traffic flow, the streets that currently exist in the footprint of the school. So we try to come up with the safest, most efficient way of trying to work that. But we know that when school's going into session or it's letting out, it's still very busy, right? And so we try to make it as safe as we can for the students, and for the people that are traveling, in vehicles.
I got a quick question here. How did y'all find out about this meeting? Because we felt like we got the word out pretty well, and we contacted all the schools, and we didn't get a huge turnout for this. So how did we contact you?
I found mine on Nextdoor, and I also got an email from Jerry DeTullio telling me he would be here.
I found out on Nextdoor as well as an email from Jerry DeTullio.
And a newspaper article.
It was in the,
Oh, I don't know, one of the little flyers that you all send every
what was it in your paper, John?
problem with that is, if you put it out in the schools, I probably should have seen it in the schools as much as I'm in the schools, because I'm PTA president at Everett. I probably, well, I think these guys can tell you, I was in both these schools 3 times today, so I'm not sure why I didn't hear about it in the school. I'm not sure why it wasn't put out in PTA or in a flyer or all call, so on and so forth, so I don't know. So, if I could ask one question. Yeah, as long as I got the mic. That first slide that you had with the traffic accidents and then call to service, is the calls to service included in, or is the accidents included in the calls to service? In other words, if you have an accident, it's going to be a call to service, right? They're two different ones.
So accidents are all accidents. Calls for service are separate from that. Yeah. And it could be a variety of things. Like I said, there's so many different things that could create a call for service related to traffic. Yeah.
So other than that, the only thing I guess maybe I could bring insight is I have to leave in about 5 minutes because Wheat Ridge has its PTSA meeting tonight. I don't know if that stopped anybody from coming. We'll have 15, 20 people there, but I will just, in closing, I will say that I'm glad that I will not be at Everett next year with the 6th graders coming, because as big as a mess as that is at Kipling, right, you're bringing in another 200 and some odd kids, and that's going to be a mess. So you're basically, another third bringing them in. So it'll be fun, but I don't have to worry about it. So I'll stay off Kipling.
You wanted to make a comment.
So I have kids. I work at a school. So this is what's really frustrating to me. I used to live in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma has a program. I believe it's a Southern program, and it works fantastic. My daughter went to a school with 756 kids in an elementary school, and they have an idea kind of like your Hug and Go, only it goes a little bit further. You, at every single school, it's this way, at least in all the elementary schools, you are in a line. You drop your kid off. A 5th grader opens the door, takes your child out. That's how you drop your kid off. There's none of this running around the parking lot and kids going, you are in that line, period. Or you park and you take your kid in. At the end of the day, the teachers leave their rooms at about 5 minutes before class is dismissed. They put the kids where they go to the buses. On the buses, they take the kids that walk home. And if you're picking up the kids, then you're once again in a line. At the beginning of the year, you have your name in the car so they know which kids you're getting. They're usually sitting in groups of, this is the 1st graders, the 5th graders. Again, a 5th grader opens the car door. They put your kid in, they put the seatbelt on, and you go off. And it was a fantastic system. There was none of this. I mean, I've seen a kid get hit at my school. I mean, I know you guys said that these are the statistics, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on that doesn't ever get reported. And it's really frustrating when I hear, oh, we can't do that. And it's like, there's 400 kids here. There were 756 kids at my daughter's school. And she went to 4 different schools at the time in Oklahoma. And I know that they do it in the South. I know it was a South initiative for safety because I work with 2 people who are in their 20s that also were part of this in the South, in Virginia and North Carolina. And it's really frustrating that there isn't a school official here because I think that's what the thing. Everybody's just like, well, there's nothing we can do about it. We can't get the cops to watch it. And there really is. And I think it really comes from getting the school administrators to understand that, yes, they do have control of their parents. They need to come up with a consistent rule, and they need to start enforcing it. And I think that if parents learn that that's what has to be done, and it's very convenient. It was very convenient to go pick up my kid and to drop off my kid because it was just a really fast, easy system. And so I think when you have your meeting, that's something that you ought to look at, is look at some of the initiatives for the safety in the South, because it's something that really does work. And I've lived across the street from the school that I'm at for years when it was the middle school, and now, I mean, it's crazy. It's much better now that it's Stevens. When it was the middle school, it was crazy. And I understand you can't be there all the time, but we really need to let administrators know they need to be seen and they need to take action for their parents, and they need to make sure that their parents start doing it because they literally will drop their kids off and have them run across the street in front of cars. I see it every day. And accidents do happen. My kid got hit by a car at Everett. She didn't get hurt, so it wasn't reported. So it does happen. So your statistics, yeah, those are statistics, but they're not really inclusive as to what actually is going on. So I'm not here to criticize. I'm just saying I think your hug and go thing is a great thing. I think we need to take it a step further, and it needs to be. And it's too bad that somebody from Jeffco wasn't here, because it's something that could probably help them across the entire, entire county.
And just to let you know, some of our schools have embraced that particular program, and we do have them.
It's great because it also gives fifth graders some responsibility and teaching them. I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, it was such a system, and you'd think, oh, it's not going to work. It worked great.
And again, with the school that I'm thinking of that particularly uses it, there are other infrastructure issues that makes it so it's not ideal still, but it's better than it was.
Right, and when all parents at every single school expect that. I mean, because my kid went to 2 different schools, but then she also did summer school. And you know what? In summer school, everybody knew the same thing, even though it was a different school. This is the line we get in. Oh, here's my sign. This is my kid. And by the end of the year, they know who you are. And if it's bad weather, the kids are inside and they bring them out. But it works very, very well. So it can be changed and it can be made better.
Thanks. I like the idea for just to teach responsibility and have those fifth graders. Yeah, that's really really good.
School administrators be present, even if it's raining or snowing. In fact, those are the times we need them more. And I see being an administrator as part of that.
Okay.
You administer,
Okay.
and you come to meetings as well.
So we'll certainly pass your concerns on to the school administrators. I mean, I don't control the school district, but we can pass your concerns on, and I'll talk with Sergeant Pickett. He's aware of this program. We might be able to at least have the discussion with schools in regards to enhancing the hug and go. But again, it's their schools, so they'll have to ultimately make the decision. But I think if we can put together the data and a plan, we can certainly have that discussion when we meet with them next. Okay.
I'd like to be part of the discussion along with the school district and maybe Sergeant Pickett or whomever you would designate.
Well, I think that would be, I think your discussion with the school district and those elected officials and those principals needs to be your discussion. We will share your message, with them and work on that. But, as citizens, they're not part of, they're not part of our city. So having that discussion with them, I would encourage you to, to have that. And if there's an opportunity to do that, we'll look into that. But try to do something along those lines. Is that fair? Thank you.
You have any questions, Larry? Give him a shot.
Thank you, Jim. Does this work? Yeah, it is. I would just like to let you know that from my personal experience as an elected official, that we do have methods that work in this town that we have used in the past. When I was first elected, I was kind of the fresh face on the block, so of course I got about 6 calls right away about a traffic problem at a school. And it was Mountain Phoenix. And so as an elected official, I viewed it as my responsibility to be a catalyst to bring all of the interested parties together. And I think that worked very well in that particular situation. The school already had a citizen or a parent committee. It wasn't necessarily PTA, but a parent committee that met regularly. And so I met with them first to understand their concerns. And then we had another meeting, and I contacted Deputy Chief Lorenz. He sent a couple of traffic officers to come out and meet with us. And then we did a survey and a traffic survey of the school, and they made their suggestions about, for instance, one parking lot, one pickup area was changed from 2-way to 1-way in order to avoid confusion and make it more efficient. And then Mr. Brink got involved in that, and there was some restriping and re-signing that took place on the street out there.
And then, of course, everyone has to remember that this is kind of a dynamic situation because every year you have maybe a couple hundred new parents coming in. So it has to be kind of a living, breathing thing. And once in a while, we have to remind the administrators that they've got a new bunch of parents, and we have to give them time to get oriented. But the citizens group sent out the new traffic plan to all the parents, and everybody did cooperate to make it the best possible situation that we could with the infrastructure that we had in place. And so when our panel here uses the word collaborative, that is possible and it is helpful. And then that's kind of the carrot, and then enforcement becomes the stick in some situations, but that's more or less a last resort.
So before I go, I just say to Larry's point is every year you have a new set of parents coming in, but so many times in our schools anyway, we have a lot of new administrators coming in too that have different thoughts or different feelings or, hey, where I was from or where the elementary came and we did it this way. So we kind of have to all get together. And the only thing I would suggest is being at PTSA meetings and PTA meetings and accountability meetings 4 times every month. That's where I would start. If I had a concern or a problem, I think that, get into your schools, talk to your principals, talk to your PTA, talk to your accountability chairs. That's me. And absolutely we'll bring it up in a discussion. And guess what? At PTSA meetings, principals there, vice principals there, 3 or 4 teachers there, other parents are there. That's where if we have a concern, that's where that probably needs to be brought up. And I mean, they're willing to listen. So, but I got to go. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming, John. Anything else? More comments here? Okay. Final statement, Chief?
So just in closing, although we've only had a few citizens that have taken the time in the evening to show up, we do appreciate your comments. We do hear what you're saying, and we will try to find ways to interject what you've said here tonight in our discussions with the schools and find ways to have your voice heard. And that's a promise from me, and I know that my staff, my SROs, and my traffic team and public works team, that's what we're here to do. We're here to try to make things work, and there are no perfect solutions to it, but we'll try to engage those school administrators. We encourage you to engage them as well, and we'll continue to work on these problems. And we realize that it's going to be an ongoing dialogue in terms of trying to address it, because ultimately, at the end of the day, we don't want to see anybody get hurt, right? And particularly students. So, from a safety perspective, that's one of our primary mandates, and one that we take seriously. Great suggestion on the potential of some other programs, and it sounds like there are some schools that have adopted that. So I'm going to get some more information on that, and we'll look at trying to push that out and get all the schools on board and leverage what works to try to make the best solution that we can. But I'd like to thank everybody that did show up tonight for taking the time out. The discussion's important. It's one of the most frequent kinds of concerns that I get expressed to me by citizens and elected officials. So I don't think the size of the crowd that showed up tonight in any way encompasses the importance of the discussion.
All right. Thanks very much. We'll be around for a while, and everybody can have a police car that lights up. There's going to be enough of them for you.